Hi, my name is Arden Riordan, and I'm here to talk to you about nonviolent communication and how you can apply that to needs, strategies, feelings of the astrological archetypes in your birth chart. And the process of that includes having empathy for the needs, the strategies, and the feelings. Nonviolent communication is a language of compassion and empathy developed by Marshall Rosenberg. I've been studying nonviolent communication and astrology since 2012. For the past year, I've focused on mastering the MVC process of self-empathy in order to heal my own childhood trauma. What has emerged for me is a system of healing that combines MVC with astrology by applying the MVC formulas for empathy to the astrological archetypes. I am not a certified NVC trainer, and in sharing about MVC, I will do my best to maintain the integrity of that system. My goal is to help people to learn self-empathy. I believe humans need self-empathy more than ever before. If we focus entirely on giving empathy to other people, and we're unable to offer empathy to ourselves, this contributes to the existing patterns of codependency. NVC and EA have similar intentions to help people to be fully self-expressed, to evolve, and to individuate. In combination, I believe rapid transformation is possible. The material I am presenting tonight will not be new for many of you. My intention is to take you on a little journey and give you an experience of looking at some familiar concepts such as codependency and individuation through the lens of nonviolent communication. The benefits of nonviolent communication include it facilitates compassion and connection. It helps us to resolve conflicts without sacrifice or compromise. It helps us to imagine effective strategies to meet needs without harming anyone. It helps us to connect with our natural self, our inner child. It helps us to live in alignment with natural laws and natural logic. It helps us to stay connected to our creativity, dreams, and goals. It helps us to stay connected to our faith and spirituality. It helps us to individuate, and it includes the protective use of force. Some assumptions of nonviolent communication. Our world is abundant. All humans share the same basic needs. All humans are capable of experiencing and expressing empathy and compassion. All humans naturally enjoy helping each other. All humans, backing up, everything we say and do is a strategy intended to meet needs. And also, sometimes when we choose not to say anything, and when we choose not to do something, that's also a strategy to meet very important needs. Feelings tell us when our needs have been met and when our needs have not been met. As adults, each of us is responsible for creating healthy strategies to get our needs met. Some core structures of MVC. Connecting with needs and releasing feelings, mourning the unmet needs and strategies that have been flawed. This is the formula for empathy, whether you're giving it to somebody else or to yourself. In MVC, empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is when we feel their pain and when we talk about our similar experience, or we just connect with their feeling and we're repeating, yes, I can feel that. Instead, in MVC, we focus on hearing their needs. We make clear observations, just the facts. We avoid language that contributes to hierarchy and violence on the planet, such as negative labels, evaluations, judgments, assessments of right or wrong. If we apply something like this concept to the birth chart, there is no bad expression of any of the planets. Making clear, direct requests for specific actions. Avoiding vague language, justifications, and words that indicate a demand, such as, you have to do that, or you should do that. So instead, we make very clear requests. Would you be willing to take the trash out now? Emotional suffering is the result of unmet, unfulfilled needs. This is the core of NVC. Flawed strategies intended to meet our needs or having no strategy. So this is why our needs are not being met. The strategies are flawed, or we have no strategy at all. Having no strategy can also be a strategy or just lack of awareness. Sometimes we say, I'm just going to wing it, let the universe brings me what I need. Strategies are flawed when very important needs are sacrificed in the process, such as the need to respect life or the need for physical safety. When your needs were only partially fulfilled and when none of your needs were fulfilled, that strategy is clearly flawed. Also, we suffer because of the inner voice, which is constantly shaming, judging, blaming, labeling, and screaming at us. I have personally experienced this, which is why I've developed or devoted the last year really to learning self-empathy. So the inner voice includes messages about ourselves, our unmet needs, our flawed strategies about what we should have done and what we shouldn't have done. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with that. 7 reasons why humanity really needs self-empathy right now. There will always be times when we need empathy and no one is available. Self-empathy enables us to work with material that we are too ashamed to talk about. Self-empathy gives us autonomy and self-sufficiency. Self-empathy helps us to remain calm and stable when the people around us are in distress. Self-empathy restores integrity, honesty, authenticity. Self-empathy is empowering and provides a sense of self-worth. And I believe empathy, self-empathy, can transform our world. Most importantly, self-empathy can free us from codependency and emotional enslavement. I believe that humanity is suffering from an epidemic of codependency right now, and it is really the foundation of the structures of the Saturnian structures of the patriarchy. Codependency is a relationship structure where we sacrifice important needs in the process of assisting other people to get their needs met. Codependency creates an imbalance in relationships. So the most obvious universal codependency issue that I observe is our structures for work. You know, the top of the pyramid has many rewards, and many of their needs are being met, and at the bottom of the pyramid are a huge number of people who are sacrificing many important needs in order to maintain their job for limited rewards. Emotional enslavement, this is when we believe we are the cause of other people's feelings. If they are in distress, we believe that we are responsible, and therefore we must fix it. In intimate relationships, we believe it is our duty and responsibility to keep the other person happy all the time. There is no emotional boundary between us and them. If our partner or child is in pain, we start to feel pain. We are enmeshed. Self-empathy helps us to individuate. Individuation is the process of evolving out of the consensus state, becoming our own authority with a distinct identity. This is attained by reconnecting with the core needs, our core basic needs, and integrating the disowned, abandoned shadow aspects, the inner children, and past life fragments, and so on. When we're in the individuated state, we live in service to our true self, our inner child, and our personal truth. Living in service to your needs, curiosity, creativity, muse, dreams, desires, values, and goals. When we're in the individuated state, we live in alignment with intuitive, natural laws and natural logic. Being connected to ourself as the ultimate resource, wisdom, and truth. This is autonomy. I would be ready to take a question. I have said a lot and there's so much information. So if anyone has a question, I would love to respond.
Hi, Arden. I do have, I'm not really sure if this is a question or not, or just a comment, and you may address this later, but what you're talking about really seems to, in my mind, I keep thinking about the Cancer Capricorn axis.
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to talk about that. I hope we can get to it. There's so much to cover, and I'm concerned that I'm going too fast. So I will stop again and ask if people want to ask questions. So conflicting needs can block our individuation and our recovery from codependency. And how this would look, a couple of examples. The belief that it is noble to sacrifice our needs for others justifies feeling proud about our sacrifices. And this is a strategy that works to get attention, respect, self-worth, self-esteem, recognition. But when pride is more important than recovery and individuation, it can block our evolution. The need for safety, and this is maybe answering your question. This is the key to the structures of our world right now. We can block our recovery and individuation when our needs for safety, security, and consistency and predictability are more important than our needs for change, growth, transformation, self-expression, and autonomy. So I believe that is a real part of the Saturnian power structures and hierarchy that we're seeing, and we can have empathy if we understand that those structures, the needs behind those structures. And we all know that Capricorn and Cancer that's really their core need is safety and security, and that's how. So that's the foundation of this entire system. And self-empathy resolves conflicting needs. It's very, very powerful for that. And here we go. I wanted to review the modern civilization system versus how the natural system would appear through the lens of nonviolent communication. So the core fundamental aspects that I can have seen or observed in the modern civilization system are a belief in scarcity, that success and happiness are limited commodities for which we all must compete. And we must prove our value to the system. We are not inherently valuable. Sacrifices are necessary and unavoidable. We are within the modern civilization system, we are motivated. We must be trained to be motivated by punishment and rewards. We're motivated with shaming, blaming, labeling, diagnosing, criticizing, and violence. And ultimately, this entire system is disconnected from the very core basic universal needs, and that causes our suffering. So in the nonviolent communication system, in the natural system, well, let's just one thing at a time. So in the nonviolent communication system, we focus on needs and we provide empathy for unmet needs. So we ask, what needs were you trying to fulfill? What needs were met? What needs were not satisfied? What was your strategy? And you can look to, the Natal Chart really is a great resource for understanding strategy. Did it work to meet the intended needs? And then we release the emotions. If we're angry, if we're afraid, if we're ashamed, a lot of shame with this, we mourn the unfulfilled needs, dreams, and flawed strategies, and release all the emotions about that until the energy has been released. And then at that point, effective strategies that just kind of pop into your head. It's a little miraculous, but the mourning can take a very long time. It could take years, depending how much is there. So then we imagine strategies that facilitate the satisfaction of all needs, everyone's needs, without harming anyone or the planet. So here we go, natural system versus the modern system. Modern system, modern civilization, just to review, we've got on the right, beliefs of scarcity, hierarchy and class system, competition, power struggles, sadism, masochism, punishment and rewards, dehumanizing people, making them into things, calling them labels that dehumanize them. They're a bad person. Codependency structures, attachment to strategies. I'll talk about that later. Driven by fear and the need for safety and security. Non-essential thoughts, lies of conditioning, and perfectionism. So non-essential thoughts, that would be like a thought like, women are inferior. I mean, what value does that have? Except to make a couple of people feel better. It's definitely not essential to survival. It's not a basic thought. And there's a lot of that in the modern civilization system. So in the natural system, we're committed to self. We're committed to serving creativity, the muse, dreams, curiosity, love, imagination, and wonder. We're connected to what is alive in us. And we affirm life. We affirm our life and other people's lives. It's self-affirming, self-empowering. There's an abundance of strategies. And we have a profound need to respect life. We're connected to that all the time. And there's just a natural logic to this, you know. Animals don't go around killing each other for no reason. They do it to eat. It's survival. And then there's the protective use of force, which is a really important thing. I don't want to be to confuse people into thinking this is, oh, I'm just going to be a nice person and then I'll be taken advantage of all the time. That's not what this is about. Attachment to strategy. This is the core. This is the core of the structures that we're seeing right now that wonderful Pluto is trying to take down. It's an attachment to old, outdated strategies, and we're addicted to them, really. This is, in nonviolent communication, we don't use the word addiction. We would it has a negative connotation. We avoid words like that. So that's what attachment to strategy is. My version of the nonviolent communication translation of the word addiction. So attachment to strategy is when we're compelled to use a flawed strategy, or really any strategy, over and over with very little variation. And we repeat the strategy. Whenever we repeat this strategy, we're hoping that we'll get a different result. Or we might be doing it because we really need to escape pain, which would be self-abusive, or addiction to drugs and stuff like that. And all of those are strategies to meet very important needs. We might be repeating our flawed strategy just because we need safety and security, and repeating behavior patterns over and over provide a sense of consistency and predictability because there's no surprises and it makes us feel safe. We know the abuse that we know can feel safer than going out into the unknown. And this is why people would stay in an abusive relationship, because it's like, I survived it in the past. I know that I can survive it in the future. And if I go into the unknown, who knows what's going to happen? So people will repeat this flawed strategy of, like, for example, being in a relationship with a abusive person, even if other really important needs are being sacrificed, such as the need for physical safety. And the wounded inner child. That inner child is not something really that is talked about in nonviolent communication, but you're getting my flavor of all of this. It's, my blending of nonviolent communication with inner child work and astrology and so on. So the wounded inner child really easily becomes attached to strategies, and a lot of our attachment to strategies that are flawed is really our inner child. And it's because it's so young usually, and it's in a state of trauma, and it's disconnected or doesn't have the mental ability to think of other strategies. Okay, I'm ready to take questions if anyone has one.
Hi, Arden, it's Wendy. Oh, sorry, Linda.
No, you go ahead, Wendy. I'll ask mine later.
Let's see. Can you hear me okay? I can't seem to control my volume.
I can.
Okay. Several, well, first, I love this whole topic. I really relate to it and appreciate it. When you were first talking about strategies and mourning, I think that was the word. What actually happens? Like, is this like a session that you do, or is this some kind of training someone goes through?
That's a good question. Well, you can give empathy to other people and hold space for them. You can use this that way. Like, you could do this with your clients and help them connect to the needs by using the natal chart to kind of zero in on them, the unmet needs, and to also observe the flawed strategies. And then if they start mourning, then you can hold space for them. Mourning is key. Mourning is the biggest part of this.
Right, not bypassing the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just thought maybe there was some specific thing that, like brought up the mourning. I'm a trained body worker, trauma therapy body worker. So I guess I was thinking in that mode or whatever, but I get it.
When you start thinking about your unmet needs, you can really start mourning. It just comes in, it's like, oh, wow, I was thinking I want to do like a demo for you. I could do it right now.
I do understand. I just wanted to make, I have a Neptune thing going on right now, so I wanted to be sure that I understood.
Yeah, I mean, I will give you the formulas later in this.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And you can do it, there's a structure to make sure that, well, there's parameters to make sure that we don't slip back into language that contributes to violence on the planet. And we want to avoid that, which would be judging or labeling. Mm-hmm. And how to have empathy for other people and yourself. I'm going to cover that after I do the little explanation of just why we're doing this crazy thing.
Oh, yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Okay, physical needs. I'm just going to, I don't want to go through all of these, but I just want to give you a sense because there's a lot of needs. And there's psychotherapists who've written their lists of needs, and there's a lot of people out there talking about basic needs. So these are kind of nonviolent communication needs, and maybe some that I've even thrown in. So physical needs, basic stuff, touch, sunlight, healthy food. Some relationship needs. Now you'll notice, I just want to go back up here. I put sexual expression in physical needs, along with exercise, touch, healthy food, elimination, water, air. And the reason why I didn't put it in here is that I think that sex can be a strategy to meet other needs. So this is sort of needs that might be met through the action of sex in a way. So sex could be on here too. It could be a need in a relationship, or it could be a strategy. So this is really like my goal now. I feel in a way that my purpose here on this planet now is pretty clear, that I want to help people recover from codependency and get that freedom to individuate in the product. Because in my book, you're either sort of in the codependency system or you're individuating. Because when you're in codependency and in that consensus state, you are sacrificing a lot of needs in order to remain in the consensus state. So some relationship needs: belonging, acceptance, understanding, partnership, cooperation, closeness, play. Pretty common stuff. I'm sure none of you are unfamiliar with these. In nonviolent communication, love is a need and it's an emotion and physical feeling. So this is a very important part of nonviolent communication, because if we want our needs for love to be met, we need to kind of be really clear about this part. Because mostly people use that word, but it's not, I want to kind of dissect it a little bit here. So love as a need, in nonviolent communication, we have strategies to meet needs. So then we want to know, what are our strategies to meet our need for love? And love as a need, really, that last panel that I showed, that's like all of those are under the category of love as a need. All the relationship needs fall under that category. And we want to know, like, what actions do we want our partner to do in order to meet our need for love? And when we're not clear about these things, and most people are not, and what they do instead is they just assume that they're going to find the person in the billions of people on this planet who intuitively and psychically knows exactly what you need. And boy, is that a bad strategy. And then we don't ask, and we assume, and we get annoyed when they don't know what we need, like they should know. And it's difficult to ask. So that's part of nonviolent communication. Emotional feelings of love is, a sense of well-being and aliveness and acceptance and peace. Like you feel like you've been accepted and you're just who you are, and there's no criticism, like it's an amazing, wonderful feeling. And then there's like a somatic part of that, which is the warmth, and I'm tuning into it now. It's like a body sensation of being relaxed and energized. Some other very important needs: personal power, self-expression, freedom, learning. These are just sort of like a variety of needs. Some of us really need birth, either physical or, archetypal. Transformation, independence, mindfulness. We might really need mindfulness. So these are needs that could be strategies. And so this is important to understand. Back to like sex, I have that on the top, really talking about like relationship. I'm focusing a lot on relationship needs because I really want to help people recover from codependency. So a lot of this is kind of fluid. Like it can be a feeling. It can also be a need, like celebration. We could feel celebratory. But we also have a need to do that. We have a need to celebrate. And so it's important to just it's like a troubleshooting. You have to kind of like dig a little bit to really sometimes find out. A lot of people, the reason why I have this slide is because I hear a lot of therapists and body workers and people who are in the service industry, and they're like, I need to serve people. I need to serve people. I need to give. I need to give. I need to give. And then underneath that, there's, something else going on. It's like a need for self-esteem and like trying to boost their self-esteem. And they're like addicted to this strategy to serve, and that's codependency. And I'm sure that's, again, not new to most of you, but this is very important to understand strategies and how to it's kind of tricky sometimes. It'll come clearer in the next slide, I think. Next couple of slides. Well, are there any questions about that? Because that is really important.
Arden?
Yes.
I feel this all comes under natural law, that under natural law, we already know what to do. It's not a belief system, and it's not something that we need to learn. We already know it intuitively. So many of us here already know this stuff, but...
Good.
Okay, great. So
it's a review then. This is a crash. I should have said this in the beginning. This is like a crash course in nonviolent communication.
All right, excellent. All right, thank you very much.
But yes, I just want to make sure, because it's the things that are very important. I just want to make sure everyone got it.
Got it.
Yeah, I'll add too, Arden, that that's very typical in the helping profession.
Yes.
Most people go into the helping profession because they themselves have been helped by it, or they're super empathic people, and it is part of their nature, and they're also going for their own healing. So if it's not conscious why they're doing it, then of course there are those patterns, or it's like both tracks, right? For myself, I became a body worker in 1995. I had all this trauma, physical trauma, and all kinds of trauma. And I went into body work because it changed my life. And it also took me to the next level, right? To the next path. It was like just my next step in my own healing process. And of course, it allowed me to become a healer, or, find that path and find boundaries.
That was my path as well. I became a yoga teacher. And I like I said in the beginning, I most of this I'm sure that you all are very familiar with, and I just want to review it and kind of pull it into this system and maybe look at it in a new way, and hopefully that will happen for you in this little thought journey that we're on. So if our needs haven't been met, we are going to feel bitter, devastated, flustered, confused, worried, all of these feelings that are unpleasant, painful. In nonviolent communication, now this is a very Gemini practice. It's very much about how we communicate. And, you know, if you believe that your thoughts create your reality, and how you, then it stands to reason how you express yourself also creates your reality. Because our inner thoughts are usually being manifested outwardly as well and directed at other people. So confusing feelings with blaming, accusations, labeling, and judgments. In nonviolent communication, we really want to avoid slipping in judgments collapsing them into a feeling. So a statement like, I feel that he is a narcissist, or I feel that she is sadistic, this is not a feeling. Back up here to bitter, flustered, numb, baffled. These are feelings. They're like somatic, and they're also emotional. A statement like, I feel neglected, it is an assessment of something that happened disguised as a feeling. I feel mistreated by him is really an accusation that somebody else should have done something that they didn't do. And I hope that's clear. These are, we're getting into this part of this presentation where I'm going into sort of, these are, I don't want to use the word rules, but they're like things we want to avoid doing if we want to get the best results when we're communicating with people. If we say he's a narcissist, we're really judging the person, and we've disguised it as an observation. She is too needy, or he is lazy. These are all inherently loaded with judgments. So here's the NVC translations. If we, instead of saying he's a narcissist, we would say he made 3 decisions today without including me. And instead of saying she is too needy, we would say she made 3 requests this morning. And instead of saying he is lazy, we would say yesterday he did not clean his room or do his homework. So very clear observations without words that contribute to the hierarchical system of power and domination and judgment. So confusing strategies with needs. I talked about that earlier regarding needs that could be strategies. Here's some language around that. So a message that would confuse a strategy with a need would be something like, I need you to clean your room. And so that's actually expressing a demand. Or another one might be, I need a better job so I can make more money. And in NVC, jobs and money are both strategies to meet needs. Both of these statements are completely disconnected from what the need is that the strategy would fulfill. So if we translate it into nonviolent communication, we would say, instead of saying, I need you to clean your room, we would say, I need cleanliness and order. Will you please help me with this by cleaning your room now? And that's expressing a need, a strategy, and a request. And so instead of saying, I need a better job so I can make more money, we would say, I need financial security so that I am going to get a job that pays more. So I am going to get a job that pays more. This expresses the need and the strategy. So it seems like, I know I can just hear people, oh, this is really nitpicky, and it's, but it's really about helping us through language to connect to the actual core need. And the assumption in nonviolent communication is, our world is really disconnected from these core needs, and it's, in a way, it's kind of intentional, because the hierarchy needs us to sacrifice these a lot of our needs in order to be good workers. So arguments, conflicts, anger, and rage. Conflicts and arguments occur when we disagree about strategies. And this is also why it's really important to be connected to our needs. Because if we want to resolve conflicts and we're arguing about strategies and we're completely disconnected from our needs, we're very unlikely to come to a solution that fulfills everyone's needs, and we're probably going to end up compromising, which means everyone has to sacrifice something. That's what compromise is. I'll sacrifice this and you'll sacrifice that. So conflicts and arguments occur when we disagree about strategies and we have confused strategies with needs. We think, I need it done this way. And that's really not what the need is. That's the strategy to meet the need. And the other person says, no, I need it done that way. So we're emotionally attached to this preferred strategy. And that's, back to the inner child and why we would be emotionally attached. It's lunar and it's Saturnian, and it's part of our training. We get trained in this by our parents and in the education system to be emotionally attached to strategies, to limited strategies. So, and we're trained to be disconnected from our basic needs. We're trained to look outside and do what somebody else is doing and do what they're telling us to do. We live in a state of scarcity and able to imagine other options. And then when we're angry toward other people, it's because we're blaming other people for our unmet needs and the pain that we're experiencing because of our unmet needs. And we're disconnected from our needs. We're just, you should have met my needs. Anger toward the self is when we blame and shame ourselves for our flawed strategies and unmet needs. Any questions? Okay. Here we go. Offering empathy. Let's check the time because we could do a break. How's that sound? Or no, we're at 6:18 now.
Would you like a break now?
We can do a break if you like.
Okay, let's break for 10 minutes.
Sounds good. Okay, so these are the basic, I want to call them formulas. I'm sure that the nonviolent communication police will get on me for saying that, but it is this formula of how you want to work with somebody or with yourself. It facilitates it, just sticking to the facts and sticking to the core needs and feelings and strategies. And we want to stay focused on that. So if we're offering empathy to someone else, we would simply say, are you feeling, and then fill in the blank, whatever feeling you're perceiving that they feel, because you need. And you can guess what their need is. It's always, if you're going to leave anything out, it'd be better to leave out the feeling than the need. So you could say as little as, do you need this? We never want to leave out the need. And then we just stop there because we want to help them focus on their needs. In fact, you could also have empathy for someone, Marshall says, without even saying anything. You can just listen to them and focus on their needs. Try to intuit what their need is and just try to keep focused on that. We don't want to ask them what they think or what happened. We don't want to go into the story. And then we just hold space for them while they are connecting with their feelings about their flawed strategies and their unmet needs. And if they make sloppy observations, he's a narcissist or whatever, we don't jump in and say, no, that's not, we don't correct them or anything. So rage and anger are like the surface layer response. In fact, rage really is like the go-to acceptable emotion being expressed in the modern civilization world in the hierarchy would be like sex, sexual energy, and rage, and that's it. And unless you're a woman, then you're allowed to like mourn, but that makes you weak. But if so, there's the thing about rage is because rage is and anger is directed at somebody else. It's I feel bad because my unmet needs, but it's your fault. So we're still blaming somebody. We're angry at someone. So that means we're no longer in the natural law system where we've jumped into the violent system. But if you let people kind of be with that rage for a while and that anger, then they'll get connected to like the sadness and the mourning underneath, which is the mourning for the unmet needs and the flawed strategies. Back to my downward arrow is not working. Whatever you did last time, Linda, please do it again because my keyboard isn't working for me to change slides.
Click once carefully on the screen, just one.
Oh.
And now.
There we go. Okay, did I mention I'm not like an expert at offering empathy to others because I have been like in hiding for 5 years and it's because I had so much pain that I had to deal with in this Neptune transit and crossing over and blah blah blah. But but I feel that I'm kind of mastered the self-empathy part. So that's really what I want to talk with you about. So basic self-empathy. It's I feel blank because my need for blank was not met when blank happened. And we want to, so I'll do it right now. Like, I feel ashamed because my need for safety is not being met and my inner voice is going crazy saying, you should have said it this way. You should have done it that way. And you didn't say it right. And it's, those nonviolent communication police are going to call you and say, you have no right to talk about nonviolent communication with astrology. It has nothing to do with astrology. And now I can laugh about it. But my need for safety really wasn't met, by me having this inner voice telling me, bah, 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 bah. So then I can take the time to feel how uncomfortable I was. And mourning is really the most important part of self-empathy. If we don't mourn the energy, it's just like stuck in the body, and it will, and worse, it'll cause like reenactments of the situation or the archetypal pattern, and we won't, like, because we're still attached to the strategy. If we don't mourn, we're still attached to these flawed strategies, and we won't even be able to see anything else. If you talk to someone when they're attached to a strategy, they'll just respond with, there is no other option. So self-empathy for the chooser, this is a term used in nonviolent communication. I also, I prefer to call the chooser the inner child. It's essentially the same thing. It's the part of us that makes that choice in the split second to do a certain thing and behave a certain way or say a certain thing, respond to somebody. It's an unconscious part of us, and it compels us, and it's repeating that strategy in a habitual way. So we identify the strategy of the chooser, what it's doing. Like, oh, I see you think that if you if somebody in a relationship doesn't agree with you, or we don't have the same agreement about sex or something, that I should just dump them and go to the next person. And that's a strategy that I've done 100 times in my life. And speaking for myself, you know, and so my chooser's doing this, you know, it's like, oops, it's uncomfortable, I'm out of there. And it's got to be, that is the wrong person. I mean, some of that may be true, you know, but we have to kind of dig and do troubleshooting to figure it out.
Arden?
Yes.
Number 4.
Yes.
The mourning of the loss. Just say yes. It involves other people, and you're either in a group of people or with a partner. Is it helpful to mourn straight away, or should that be done alone? In front of others or alone?
Well, obviously, you need to assess the environment, and if it's safe for you to mourn. If people are going to start judging you, that's really not going to be helpful. It's more about safety.
What if one cannot stop their feelings because, like, for example, I have moon in Cancer, and there's no way I can stop my feelings, so I tend to mourn at that very moment, and it is like an undercurrent. So I just wonder your opinion on that.
That's why I've been in hiding for 5 years. It's like I've had so much mourning. Oh, it's been like nonstop crying. And I can relate. I'm not sure I have the answer, because I don't know. It's about your comfort zone and what you feel comfortable with, and the people you're with. You know, I think if I was in an uncomfortable situation and it came up, I'd probably leave, because it's more important to me to do that than it is to stuff it and, you know, put on a nice face. And
it could be helpful for the other people to actually see the true, you know, response, the true emotional response, because crying and showing our emotions it's a no-no, and it should be okay to do that in public. I think.
I agree with you, and it can make people very uncomfortable. And you know, I've had, like, in fact, last year I broke up with 2 friends who it was kind of one of those situations where I was like crying all the time, and they would look at me like I was nuts. So you know, it's going to be hit or miss. You have trial and error, you know.
Thank you.
So just to do this quick, I'll say it because it's so important. So it's identify the strategy of the chooser, identify the needs of the chooser, and then assess, did the strategy work? And when your needs were not met by your strategy, then you mourn the loss of needs not met and feel any other feelings associated with that. Self-empathy for the inner voice. See, now, I want to back it up here. So basic empathy, this is great for a lot of situations, but when you got some major trauma, you really need to dig deep, and this is not enough. I had to learn this the hard way, which is, you know, that it's not even all that clear in the literature about NVC, about empathy for the chooser and then empathy for the inner voice. Actually, in nonviolent communication, Marshall calls this the inner educator, because this voice is really trying to educate you to do it better next time. But it's absorbed, it's speaking in the language that it heard in its surroundings when it was younger, so it's a language of blame and judgment and shaming. So it's saying things like, you're a jerk, you're a failure, you're a loser, you're worthless. And that's what the inner voice is saying, because that's how it was perceiving the messages that it heard when you were young. But what it really is saying is, we've got to change something, and it's time to do things differently, and help me, take a different action. I also like calling it the inner motivator, because it's trying to motivate you to do it in a different way. Or it's also the inner critic. Well, that's definitely getting more into like the modern hierarchy violence system. So we would ask the inner voice, and this is even more difficult. This is the most difficult layer, in my opinion, because when the inner voice is screaming, chances are you're going to really not have much impact. If you have a really horribly, well, that's a violent word. If you have an inner voice that's in as much pain as mine has been my entire life, I mean, it has literally, and I have full disclosure, at 7 years old, I started contemplating suicide. And I created plans and everything. It was like something I could do when I was bored. Like there's an escape route. Just keep remembering that. And my inner voice has been harsh. I have the classic Virgo inner voice. And even after a year of working with her, sometimes I cannot get her to respond. And it's, are you feeling, so the basic formula, are you feeling blank terror because you need blank when X happened? It's usually, the inner voice is usually talking about stuff in the past or predicting what's going to happen in the future, but the pain is stuff in the past. And then I like to add a sentence like, and you really need me to know how painful it is when your needs are not being met in these situations that I keep creating. And then you take time to feel all those emotions and mourn the loss of needs not met and any other feelings associated with this. So I'm ready for questions or comments.
Oh my God, I have so many. It's Wendy. When you first started talking about, I don't know, when you were first describing what was going on in your head about the meeting, I was cracking up over here because it's exactly what happens to me. I mean, it's the same thing. Oh my God, I said this, or I could have said that way, or blah, 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 blah. You know, it goes on and on. And then there's also, I mean, I totally resonate with all of this, because when you have disassociated or disowned, disconnected pieces that have split off to survive, for me, the way that I reclaimed those things was to honor every layer, every voice, every feeling, right? I have Pluto in the 4th house, right? I have Venus in the 4th house. I have Cancer energy, and I was a rising Cancer for years. I had to go into my emotions and allow the grief. I cried for years and years and years. And even people in my recovery were like, they couldn't handle it. But that's because I'm set up to do this work in this life. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to bypass my emotional body. I already did all that. That's how I survived. And I didn't want, I felt very unsafe around people that were doing the same thing, or that were bypassing, because they can't, I don't think those people can actually meet you. I mean, the reflection helps, I think, at various times, but that's always situational, right? We're deciding in every moment. And I do feel like the Virgo generation and people that have strong Cancer need that level of support I mean,
Yeah.
that's a judgment, really, because every human, every being has needs around emotional stuff. But I'm loving this, and I have a couple ideas, because I would like to start a Virgo support group, actually. I'm not kidding. I
Count
know
me
so
in.
many people. Yeah, but I'm thinking, like, we could, like, do some work together around it.
I'd love that.
Yeah. Thank you, Arden.
Thank you for the comment and sharing. So here we go. Empathy for planets, signs, and houses. So what I've been doing is I look at the natal chart and I try to comprehend what the needs are. This has actually been, I have a slide for each of the signs and and the planets, and it took me quite a while because I had to translate a lot of the standard astrology descriptions about those signs and houses into needs, feelings. I had to translate that language into needs, feelings, and strategies. So then, after we identify the needs, feelings, and strategies of the archetypes, and you could just do one at a time, obviously, then we identify conflicting needs, either within an archetype or between archetypes. That's really helpful because that's usually what keeps us very, very stuck. And it also blocks a lot of our needs from being met. And then we identified identify the flawed strategies as expressions of the archetypes. For example, Venus strategy, we all know the shadow strategy of codependency associated with Venus. Then we mourn and release all the feelings about the unmet needs and flawed strategies. And then when we're done, and I want to do this today, we fill our tank and we celebrate. So this is something I really haven't talked about yet. Celebration is when we've had needs that have been met, and we want to connect with them. I also think this is something that we all really lack. It's about sort of being with those needs that have been met without going into, yeah, but that thing didn't happen, and just like being with it long enough to really have that somatic experience that changes your body and you get energized and relaxed. Any questions before we start? And the first house. So I don't want to read all of this, except just a few important ones and some things I want to point out here. So for strategies, I think strategies is pretty closely aligned with sort of career astrology, like vocational data that you're getting out of the houses and the signs and the planets. So, Mars, because our career is a strategy. It's a strategy to make money so that we can then meet other needs. Our core needs, which are, shelter and clothing and food and so on. So, the feelings are, for this conversation, I'm putting them up there, but unless there's a feeling that's really important, I'm going to really focus on needs and strategies as we go through this. So, Mars needs initiation, needs challenge, it needs action. I'm sure none of this is new to all of you beautiful astrologers who are watching this. It needs recognition and autonomy, individuality. So strategies, how it would seek to fulfill itself and fulfill its needs, aside from, roles such as soldier, police officer, athlete, and so on. Mars may join a fraternity, a men's club. It operates instinctively and spontaneously, it may want to go to war. It's competitive, confrontation, and so on. It may be a bully. It's very straightforward. So the bottom here is very important. Doesn't include others in decision-making process and does not consider the needs of others while making those decisions. This is the nonviolent communication, or my version of the nonviolent communication translation of the word narcissism. So it's kind of long. It's so nice to just say he's a narcissist. It's so easy. They've made it so easy for us to be violent by making these great words. But if we translate it into a language that doesn't contribute to violence on the planet by labeling and condescending and judging people, then it would sound like this: doesn't include others in decision-making processes and doesn't consider the needs of others. Any questions, comments on that? Good. More translations. So typical language of modern civilization related to maybe Aries, Mars, first house. She is so manipulative, demanding, needy, controlling. She's smothering me. You can hear it there. He needs freedom. And we're going to translate that into NVC, taking 3 times as long. I'm angry and frustrated because my need for freedom and autonomy were not met when she asked me where I was going, and then she got angry and said, "You don't spend enough time with me." And then she said she was afraid that I might leave her. I need trust and respect in this relationship, and now I'm really sad because I don't know how to create the trust and respect that I need. Any comments, questions? Okay, moving on. Second house, Taurus, Venus. Beautiful needs of basic survival, food, shelter, fertility, sunlight, safety, security, and stimulating all the senses: touch, taste, sense. Love, pleasure, comfort, belonging, reassurance, beautiful needs. Some of the strategies I'm noticing as I was going through that I'm sort of putting like the negative strategies. I'm kind of focusing on maybe more of the negative strategies. I mean, creating wealth is not a negative strategy unless it becomes you're attached to that as sort of your go-to strategy, which is another one part of the modern civilization system, as we all know, is an incredible attachment to creating wealth as a strategy to meet other needs. But instead of focusing on the needs, we're focusing on creating wealth as if that was the end, as if that is the need, and it's really a strategy. So other than that, Taurus, Venus, more translation. Resist change. We don't want to say stubborn, although I have said it in a couple of, sorry, there's a little fly here. I have used that word. I'm kind of on the fence whether it's a good word or a bad word, but we can translate that into resist change. That's pretty non-judgmental. They're frugal, practicality. These are all strategies to meet needs. And emotional attachment to objects and environments. So we're emotionally attached to objects and environments as a strategy to meet needs. And the result could be hoarding, greed, being extravagant. Maintaining conservative values is another very important need. Maintaining consensus. Being within consensus. Translating some messages that might be associated with Taurus, Venus. typical inner voice comment, I am worthless, I don't deserve love. So instead of saying that, to translate that into nonviolent communication, we'd say, I'm angry because my needs for commitment and respect were not met when he had sex with another woman, and my need for acceptance was not met when he said that I am too clingy. I need loyalty, honesty, and partnership in a relationship. Now I'm terrified and sad because I don't know how to create the relationship that I need. So at this point, I'm just going to kind of breeze through some of these just to point out there's a lot of material here, and I am going to make a PDF file for that'll be available of these slides. And so I just want to kind of go through them quickly, and then at the end we can have that Q&A. So Gemini needs mental stimulation, challenges, logic, clarity, communication, needs that connection with siblings, excitement, adventure, variety, change, fun, and humor. Some strategies would be messenger, learning, teaching, speaking, writing, grammarian, craftsman, debate, adaptability, multitasking, chameleon, merchant, devil's advocate, and of course, short journeys. And feel free, if anyone has comments or questions, just go ahead and jump in. There's also some cynicism and skepticism associated with Gemini. I have Gemini North Node and a couple of 4 planets, including Mercury, in the 3rd house. And so I feel that I'm talking about myself here. Although I don't lie, ever. 4th house, Cancer Moon. Okay, now we can connect some of this over back to the Cancer Capricorn structures of our world that are predominant in our world. The need for safety, security, comfort, protection, consistency, loyalty, deep bonding, nurturing, dedication, procreation, connection to the family, community, tribe, ancestors, heritage, and history, really. It's like that need to preserve that is so strong. And emotional healing and emotional expression and validation of emotions. I hope that need gets met for all humanity real soon. But back to Wanda's question about, how that the Cancer Capricorn archetype is coming through. And so here it is. It's this connection to history, and it's really down at the bottom, attachment to strategies, right? So the strategies, again, creating wealth, home, family, mother, spending time with family, being a caregiver, possibly some codependency, avoiding conflict, conforming, escapism. And attachment to strategies is like itself a strategy. In this, I actually feel that with the Cancer Capricorn archetype, they actually have a strategy of being attached to strategies. They're so attached. So they're attached to strategies, emotions, people, the past, maintaining that traditional consensus structure. I don't want to sound negative about this, but it is kind of cute when you think about it. And I do have a lot of empathy for the needs that are involved and behind that. Leo, enthusiastic Leo and needing to be alive. Leo needs recognition, love, acknowledgement, accomplishment, attention, purpose, excitement, fun, laughter, passion, personal power, individuality, self-awareness, and to creatively express the self and enjoy life. Strategies would be any and all actions to obtain praise, applause, fame, admiration, approval, compliments, adoration, rewards, and confusing those things with needs. So this is a little tricky here. So is praise a need, or is it a strategy to meet needs? I think it's a strategy to meet needs, not a need. Is applause a need? Probably not. It's more a strategy to meet a real need, like self-esteem, really, being alive, or maybe someone else will have an idea about that. So sometimes something can be, it can be like pride is another one associated with Leo, and is pride is a need. We all need pride. We all need to be proud. But there's a point where it becomes a strategy to get another need met if we hang out there too long. And again, narcissism at the bottom doesn't include others in decision-making processes and does not always consider the needs of others. Virgo. Boy, all of those feelings are kind of going through them right now. Needing, healing, discipline, modesty, understanding, safety, loyalty, mental stimulation, cleanliness, honesty, trust, healthy digestion, integration. And strategies would be a lot of work-related strategies: organizing, writing, criticism, analysis, problem solving, working really hard. And then, of course, perfectionism comes in. And deferred gratification, that's a great strategy. I like that strategy. Very powerful. Service, responsibility, codependency. Masochism, victim, slavery, isolation, purification. Purification could be a need, but it could also be a strategy. Same with isolation. It could be a need or it could be a strategy. Caregiver, a lot of these that you have to kind of dance with it. I've recently kind of uncovered really some very deep core needs, and I was surprised because I really thought for the last year was something else. Libra. Libra, of course, needs balance, symmetry, connection, beauty, love, romance, harmony, creativity, fairness, justice, debate, relationship, partnership, boundaries. Definitely needs some boundaries, loyalty. Strategies would be compromising, codependency, avoiding confrontations by being a people pleaser, self-sacrifice, peacemaker, marriage, flirtation, sexual affairs, responsibility, altruism, idealism, accommodating, and laws, rules, planning, seeing different perspectives, and strategies to avoid pain. So that's my translation of the word superficial, which I saw a lot referred to in my research about Libra, and several resources said Libra was superficial, and I just had to translate that into nonviolent communication, because why would we be superficial? I think it's like we don't want to be heavy, because when we're heavy, then we're feeling those feelings that are painful, and we don't want to feel those feelings. Scorpio needs transformation, personal power, control, complexity, truth, understanding, commitment, introspection, deep introspection, honesty, knowledge, mental stimulation, healing, merging, becoming one with something, losing oneself. I feel that that's like an altered state of consciousness, the merging. Authority, respect, and strategies to achieve those needs might be creating wealth, archetypal psychology, psychic, deep thinking and contemplation, exposing the unconscious, obsessing, addictions, violence, dominating, masochism, sadomasochism, seduction, possessiveness, being very competitive and needing to be powerful, being addicted to power, to that sense of that somatic experience of having that power. Corruption, revenge, unforgiving, secretive, attached to being right. Sagittarius, 9th house, Jupiter. Needs knowledge, spirituality, beliefs, wisdom, religion, faith, meaning, growth. Good judgment. Needing honor. That's another one of those words that I was like, is this really a need, or is it a strategy to meet needs? But I do think for some people, honor is really a need. Healthy boundaries, diversity, and strategies might be travel, philosopher, teaching, guru, fanatic, dogmatic, devotee, sales, hero, naive. That's one of those words we could translate into nonviolent communication, sort of like overly trusting. Master, studying, currency trader, people pleaser, some codependency possibly, attached to being right, maybe some delusions, like Don Quixote, missionary, pilgrimage, dishonesty, humor, avoiding painful emotions. This is also, there's my translation for superficial again. Capricorn, Saturn, 10th house. Okay, this is where we can all, I hope everyone watching can get a sense of empathy for Saturn and Capricorn and the structures that they have created in our world right now. Because boy, do they need safety, security. Capricorn needs that so much. And control of one's environment, autonomy, belonging, community, loyalty, order, responsibility, accomplishment, protection, needs that protection. Consistency, predictability, boundaries, traditional values, honor. Connection to heritage, family, and history. These are very powerful needs that underlie the very fabric of our society. Strategies would be creating wealth, father authority figure roles, maintaining consensus structures, all consensus structures, all the governments, the corporations, the laws, rules, hierarchy, the penal system, domination structures, physical structures, war, punishment, the system of punishments and rewards as a motivating tool to control all of us. And not just control us, but to convince us that this is the only way. Unforgiving, resisting change, really attached to strategy. You can have empathy for the attachment to strategy. That would look like, if there's any sign that I want to really focus on, sorry, maybe I'm being a little heavy-handed, but it's Capricorn and the attachment to strategy. I want to say, like, oh, Capricorn and Saturn, so you're so attached to these strategies of domination and power, and you haven't met your needs for safety enough yet, and it's just not enough. And I want to have empathy for that. Aquarius needs individuation, liberation, autonomy, integrity. Needs some safety too. Needs change, quality, communication, growth, innovation, creativity, self-expression. Needs to be accepted for its crazy, outside of the box way of thinking. It needs community, tribe, fun, play, humor. It needs some isolation. You cannot go through individuation unless you go through isolation. It's like not possible, because if you're trying to individuate and you're constantly surrounded with people trying to pull you into consensus, it's going to be very difficult. 11th house Aquarius needs authenticity and intellectual stimulation. Some strategies would be unconventional behavior, anarchy, rebellion, futurist, revolution, alternative lifestyles, visionary, fanatic, dogmatic, humanitarian, isolation as a strategy, astrology, problem solving, some aggression there. The aggression could be like within the rebellion and the revolution energy. But also it could be sort of a an attachment to being right. Being attached to being right can be kind of, we might operate in ways that feel aggressive. I'm laughing because I have a lot of Aquarian, and I get a lot. I have Mars on the midheaven, and I can't tell you how many times people have said, "Oh, you're so angry," even if I'm laughing. They just pick that up right away. So it takes a long time to make decisions and resist change. But then, on the other hand, change can happen really fast too. So there's some contradictions there. And 12th house, Pisces, Neptune, needs isolation, rest, peace, faith, spirituality, communion, creative self-expression, reassurance. Definitely needs boundaries, loyalty, devotion, connection, deep connection, needs merging and intimacy, communication, acceptance, honesty, respect, trust, healing, and inner peace. And strategies to meet those needs could be being a musician, an artist, an actor, a poet, and participate activities like prayer, contemplation, meditation, chanting, being a monk or a mystic. There's also codependency and self-sacrifice, masochism, martyr, denial, being a people pleaser, escapism, drugs, addiction, rescuer, overly trusting, self-pity, self-destruction, suicide. Suicide as a strategy. Boy, I can talk about that. Suicide as a strategy. So much pain. Just need to end the pain. And we're reborn and we have to start again. But hey, no judgment, nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. It's a strategy to meet certain needs. Fantasy, delusions, seeing what they want to see. So that completes our thought journey. And I have some resources that I want to recommend. There are a lot of videos on YouTube, and there's some excellent audios on Vimeo. So the Marshall Rosenberg has like 8-hour workshops up there. So there's tons of workshops. But I wanted to bring alert your attention to these 4 wonderful, amazing videos. This thing called Love, which is about relationships, and it really is very helpful for recovering from codependency in relationships. And then Giraffe Fuel for Life, which is about gratitude and filling your tank with celebration. And creating a life-serving system within oneself is about self-empathy. That one is very powerful. A lot of the material that I've covered here is from that. If you go to YouTube, by the way, Vimeo, to see this, they don't have the right name on that audio. It's also called Giraffe Fuel for Life. And then finally, expressing and receiving anger compassionately, and that's also on Vimeo. And then I'm creating a video series on recovering from codependency, and series on self-empathy. And so I have part 1 up there. If you're interested in seeing more of my videos, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And there's a lot more to come. And now I'm ready for Q&A and comments and whatever anyone wants to share.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions, anyone, or comments? So Arden, if you could click on stop share at the top of the screen. Okay, great. Who'd like to go first?
I guess I'll go first in Aries fashion. I was just thinking, I had a comment as far as maybe a strategy for Sagittarius. I think that maybe the comic or humor, seeing the absurdities, the absurdities in life, to, like, say, laugh to keep from crying. And also, I've made a note about when you mentioned the chooser. To me, that sounded a lot like the Pluto Scorpio 8th house archetype, since it is unconscious and it does
Yes.
kind of choose those things, you know, these events and things for us to prod us and push us into, you know, the evolutionary process. That's all I had so far.
Yes, I think your point is really great about the chooser, because like there's like layers, and so there's when we get down to those really deep layers, to connect to those needs. Like I said, I've been pretty surprised myself, kind of going down the rabbit hole really, and it just keep going down, and more needs coming out, until you get to a very core need. And yeah, that's definitely Scorpio, I think.
Arden, I thought it interesting that the Pisces, the trilogy of feelings, needs, and strategies, it kind of covered them for all the signs in a way, because when we came to that, I realized, wow, this is the one that I really resonate with. And also another comment is, I think there would be more conflict in strategies between people rather than in needs, because all those good things, we all need those good things. And as you said, they're all pretty natural. And so any comment about power struggles when two people have different strategies and they're both like, you know, they're so excited about their strategy, but they're just conflicting with others?
That's a great question. So, so how you would use nonviolent communication for conflict resolution. And so you go back to the needs and try to connect with the needs that you have, and then connect and understand the needs of the person who you have the conflict with. And as you can do that on your own, or you can do better yet in together, to maybe help the person and say, well, I think I really need safety here. What do you think you really need that this is going to give you, this strategy that you have? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'll just add that in my case, that then leads to me trying to create strategies for two people, not just one, because I can't go along with his strategies. So therefore, that's a typically Libran kind of thing, where Libra seeks to understand the other partner, to understand their reality in order to give them what they need. So I guess that Libra Scorpio would be very important in dealing with others.
So what I would want to say to you is, it sounds like you have a need to really help people, and then you have a strategy to understand their strategy.
Exactly.
And try to offer strategies to them. And that's not in the nonviolent communication system, and it's fine. In nonviolent communication, we don't want to make suggestions. We just want to help them connect with their needs. I'm not the best at this, like I said. I'm really great with self-empathy. But I've used it. You know, I've resolved conflicts. I have. My husband and I had a long-standing conflict. He's on here now. And when I first read the Marshall Rosenberg's book, what came through was, boy, do I need to make clear observations. And if I make a request, I was making requests without clear observations. And so after I read that, which was in 2012, and then it ended when I finally made clear observations, it ended this long-standing conflict in like one session. Did that answer? Was that relevant at all?
Relevant. excellent, and I love it all. Thank you for that. Any
Mhm.
other comments or questions? We have actually plenty of time.
Yeah.
So we can keep going.
Hey,
Or,
it's Wendy again, but if
yeah.
somebody else wants to go, please do.
I also wanted to offer that if anyone would like empathy for something, then that's another option too.
Well, I love this mercurial way of approaching things because I'm very mercurial. A loaded third house, just like you, but I have my moon in Cancer. But, I can also feel into all of this as well. And so that feeling nature, it's kind of conflicting with the mercurial nature to some extent. Not really a conflict, but they're different.
Conflicting needs. Maybe I might not have gone into that enough. How you can have empathy for conflicting needs. So I could talk about my own chart here. I've got Uranus, Pluto, Moon conjunct in Virgo, and they're squaring the nodes, and opposite Chiron in Pisces. And Uranus wants to free my soul, and my moon is so attached to strategies and so attached to these old memories, and it has a different need. It needs connection, and my Uranus needs freedom and to express some things in this life. And it's been a very difficult because my moon is so incredibly attached, and they're like in conflict with each other. I can see it now more than ever. They've been in a real, almost like a death struggle for my soul, which is sitting in between the two. So how do I resolve that? I mean, really, I just have to give a lot of empathy to my moon, and a lot of empathy to my moon and all of the stuff that it's attached to, all of the issues, all of the memories, and not make it wrong.
I love how it's all so intertwined. All the elements, the earth, the water, the fire, the air. And like one partner could have their moon in an air sign and the other partner could have their moon in a water sign, and just the dance between them and all the other archetypes. It's fascinating. Wendy, go ahead if you're ready.
That's okay. Thanks, Linda. Anybody else, since I've said plenty already? Gosh, there's so much. I mean, when you were going through the signs, I was thinking about the Leo archetype and the Cancer. And I was thinking, because I was in a relationship with someone the last couple of years, and it's pretty much ended now. I've known him for a long time, but he didn't want to do the work, and a very, painful background, but didn't want to address that. And it just was not working for me energetically over time and emotionally. And the one thing that happened is he would never acknowledge my feelings. He would always attack me instead, and it just didn't work. And I'm a Leo sun, and I really personally, I needed that acknowledgement. I mean, I don't know if it was so much my ego or a strategy. I feel like it's inherent in my sun sign. I don't know. And then I was thinking about another friendship, a woman I've known a long time, and she's got the South Node in Capricorn. Oh my God, she's got massive strategy. She's so attached to strategy. It's so funny to hear you put it in that frame. It really just helped me even understand her even better. And I mean, of course, I have a lot of compassion for her, but for me to choose to go into business with her is not a good plan for me. Unless she's, anyway. I won't go into that further, but I just wanted to also say that, I went to the doctor with my sister yesterday. She's also Pluto and Virgo generation, born 62. She's got Uranus, Pluto, Ceres, the moon, Lucifer, something else, all conjunct in Virgo in the second house. And and she's got Neptune, Venus conjunction in Scorpio, fourth house. So all her planets are below the horizon except for Saturn. She is diabetic and has been for 3 years, and she's not taking her medicine. Her blood sugar was off the charts, right? And she has so much criticism, internal it's so extreme. It's very painful for me to see it. And I really love her. And every time I think of these Virgo things, or I hear something like this, I think of her. And so I'm going to send her this video, and hopefully she'll really like it. And she'll watch stuff, and it's it's different soul levels too, right? People are willing and ready to do the work, and some aren't. Or I could use a different word besides work. Be willing to non-violently communicate.
The not doing the work thing, to have empathy for that, that's conflicting needs. So there's another need that's more important. So if you can have empathy for the need that's more important, then you can understand why.
Of course, I know she hasn't addressed all that early trauma and all that. I do understand. I do have so much empathy for her. And I also got mad. But that passed. Thanks, Arden.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have another question, unless someone else has another one or has a question. What I was wanting to know is where, and I'm not really sure how to word this. Sometimes I have trouble with my words and my phrasing and getting my thought across. But where does this come in when you have someone else's needs, or what they have determined is their needs, that are actually threatening to the actual survival of someone else's needs? How does this particular method, address that?
So I want to, can you do like a hypothetical situation so I could get a little more clarity?
Okay, I want to try to generalize this as best as I can. But the particular environment that we are in today, where a certain people are afraid of another certain people just for being who they are. And their safety can end up leading to detrimental results for this other person. So that's I guess, what I'm getting at.
So what I hear you saying is that how can we have empathy for people who their needs have been unmet for so long, and it's so important to them, or even if it's not been a long time, it's so urgent now that they would actually sacrifice their own need, which is a natural need in every human being, to respect life, and that they would act violently. And how can we have empathy for someone who has such an important need that they would behave in a way that would kill or damage our planet, or kill animals or other people? we have to connect with their need. We can't look at the strategy. If we look at the strategy, we're going to go crazy. We have to look at the need. We have to just stay focused on the need and put blinders on and just tune into, whoa, that need is so big. And then, we have to also understand that they don't know how to create healthier strategies, and we can have empathy for that they have a need that they're maybe not even aware of to create a new strategy because they're disconnected from their needs.
Arden, what about
Yes.
somebody who has a strategy in place that is very destructive? For example, alcoholism, and the partner is asking, what is the deeper need, and then addressing the deeper need, but this thing could go on forever. So any comments on this?
So if you're asking how we can have empathy, are you asking how we can have empathy for someone who's an addict?
Well, the empathy is not a problem. The problem is how to deal with this. Yes, with an addict. Yes, absolutely. So you just keep having empathy. Are we wanting to change them? Are we hoping that they will change, or what?
Yes, in nonviolent communication, we never want to change somebody.
But is it possible to help them through our responses, through our strategies?
I think it would be important to, you could make a request. Would you be willing to sit with me and do this weird thing called nonviolent communication, where we focus on needs and maybe think about strategies later, but let's just focus on needs right now, and I want to make sure that your needs are getting met. I have a concern that your needs are not being met in this life.
That's excellent. That's a great way to do it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I did want to sort of add on to kind of the question that Linda asked, and my earlier question: does flight, especially for Mars, the Mars Aries first house strategy, does this play a part in here?
Do you mean like running away and leaving the area because you're not safe?
Yes. Even though you're trying to have empathy for this other person's need, but their need may not necessarily be destroying them, but it could be,
yes,
so not safe for you.
I would suggest, if you're not safe, run away and have empathy for them telepathically. My husband, who's here, he's great at doing this. I mean, first of all, he's like a professional psychic, and but we've had some really powerful journeys. As I said disclosed in the last appearance on EA Zoom meetings last week, that I've done some psychedelic stuff in ayahuasca, and we've had some journeys, and my husband has just gone into this telepathic conversation with the Brotherhood and said, "Hey, it's safe. It's safe now. You can let go. It's time, and we can all do this. We can all do this. Just start sending that message. It's safe. You can let go. You don't have to build a wall between us and Mexico to be safe." Does that make sense? Does that respond to your...
Yes, it does. Even what you just said there, that the thought came to me as far as maybe that was part of the message of Uranus in Aries, that trauma coming back up, and maybe now what to be safe to talk about it and get it out there where it wasn't then?
Yeah, I mean, Marshall Rosenberg actually talks about this, that if you you don't even have to say anything to do this process, you can just think it. And so all you have to do is leave, be safe, protect yourself, and then when you're at a safe distance, you can tune into the person and connect with their needs. And mourn if you, I mean, I don't like, I'm not suggesting that we like channel people's emotions. I don't think that's necessary to do with this. That's more of the sympathy. That's going back into sympathy. It's more asking, like, telepathically talking to them. So it sounds like you really, really need safety and you're not getting it and you're willing to kill someone thinking that's the right strategy to get safety. And just, have empathy for that.
Would you say that safety is the bottom line for all of the archetypes?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There, safety, security, and stability of some kind.
Very interesting.
Right. I mean, that's like basic psychological, the groundwork for basic survival, right?
Exactly. And that's going to trump anything. And that's why when I look at our world today, what I see is that the people who have organized this whole structure of power and hierarchy must have incredible insecurity in order to try to create structures that that they feel are going to give them this protection.
Yeah, of course. It's like Saturn issues and unprocessed trauma. I mean, Barbara Hand Clow talks about that a lot, about, there's people aren't processing their past lives and all the stuff we carry forward. We recreate and we recreate and we keep doing it over and over.
Recreating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's like a stuckness there. There's a real stuckness about this. I don't know. My intention I'm so thrilled, first of all, that we're even talking about this, that you're getting this, because I wasn't sure I was going to convey it properly, but this is the conversation I wanted to have with you all about how we can maybe start to work together to send some energy into the collective to try to help with this it's like attachment to strategy gone wild to the extreme, where they just, more money, we need more money, and then I'll feel what? Like, what are they going to get out of that? Really, at a certain point, it's ludicrous.
Well, thankfully, the smaller percentage of people in individuated state and spiritual state are continually holding the space, the heart space, and there's people meditating 24/7 around these issues all around the world and raising the vibration and, counterbalancing everything. And yes, the more education we have with people and holding the space. One of my girlfriends was like, oh, if we could just drop some mushrooms or something in the sky, like in the powder, and let it like fall all over, and everybody could just have some kind of awakening.
My objective, I think, is to insert empathy so that while we're meditating, we're not making them wrong. And while we're trying to help, we're not making them wrong, because as long as we see them as the enemy, we're contributing to violence on the planet. And with nonviolent communication, when we connect to their needs, we don't see them as an enemy, because we all have these very basic needs. And that's how you resolve conflict. When people connect at the level of needs, and then you allow the strategies to be born out of that, then we come up with strategies that enable everybody to get their needs met. And that this isn't like pie in the sky thinking. Marshall Rosenberg actually did a lot of work doing conflict resolution in with tribes and countries and the police departments and gangs, and it was very effective.
Yeah, I like the practicality of it, and the structure is very helpful. Mm-hmm.
You saying that meets my need to share what I'm seeing with other people in a way that they could see it.
I'm glad.
Me too. I think we could really see it, like you set it out really well, and I think I've totally understood it. And yeah, I just wanted to address something that Wanda was saying before about Aries. I wanted to add that a need could be to feel like a hero, and by protecting and defending oneself and others, and also to feel appreciated for one's energy, wanting appreciation from, needing appreciation from others for one's energy, because Aries can sometimes be considered a troublesome archetype, which is real nonsense. So they're all equal. All the archetypes are equal and equally important.
And there's nothing wrong with any of it. It's all, if we look at it, I love the concept of the separating desires and the returning desires. And, you know, we could say, you know, somebody who doesn't want transformation and they want to remain stuck in their strategy, they just haven't exhausted that strategy enough. They want to explore it and be in it, and they want to fully. So looking at this world, Saturn strategy and the Pluto strategy of this hierarchy and domination structures, they obviously haven't exhausted exploring that yet.
I wonder if Uranus in Uranus in Taurus will help us intellectually understand the strategies that we've had in place for our survival, both positive and negative. And I think it's opening up because we're looking at the Venus archetype here, which is to do with other people. It's not just the self, but it's also dealing with others.
I feel like this whole video for me was my homage to Uranus in Taurus.
Excellent. So beautiful. Anyway, look, we've run out of time now. So I want to thank you so much from all of us. This has been absolutely fantastic. And I think it will change the world. So thank you so much from all of us. And we hope to see you next time. Would you all please thank Arden Riordan, everybody?
Thank you, Arden.
Thank you, Arden. Beautiful.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much.